All right, welcome everyone. We are live. It's Monday morning, and we are working on the book, The Invocation of Presence. We just did a few minutes of attention sizer exercise, and I think Swati had a question or a thought on that. So I'll just open the floor.
Yeah, Nikhil, so thank you for clarification. I was always like, whenever I used to do this exercise, uh, the mind goes like drifts towards the thoughts and then my eye starts blinking. So I was not sure if what exactly is expected to do in this exercise. So now it's clear.
Okay, great. Good. Uh, I guess I'm not sharing my screen, am I?
Not at the moment.
All right, I'll start sharing my screen now. All right. So I think last week we ended up on page 60, but we spent quite a um, few minutes on this last paragraph. So I thought we'll just start by reading the last paragraph from last week and then just go from there. Does that sound good with you guys? I guess I'll just get started. The members of the community must be made aware by law. I think I'll mute Bernie. I'll just repeat again. The members of the community must be made aware by law that they have been invited to participate in an unending process of friction, grinding down, which has the effect useful for you, but painful and perhaps even unbearable for them, thanks to the effects of self-invocation, should they ever seriously undertake the discipline introduced by you, again according to certain laws of the work, of generating negative force on a scale corresponding to your own invocational necessity without the need for your continual intervention or provocation. The fact is, any group of people will provide this friction more or less non-stop under almost any conditions. If they are forced to tolerate one another and accommodate themselves to the annoying habits of others. There are those here this evening who have been given data on this subject, which would be useful to the entire group, G said. The idea of the use of negative force produced by the ordinary momentum of organic life can provide the majority of your remembering factors, and at the same time also feed your invocations, and by the absence of the negative force, also indicate a successful invocation. Just place yourself in my hands, live as I do, and accommodate yourself on a minute by minute basis to the needs and demands, whether real or imaginary, of those I have intentionally invited to be near me. That should remind you to invoke your presence. When you feel the sensations of negative emotion, without pause to reflect on its significance or your feelings about your negative state, you should use these sensations to help you remember to self invoke. And with the use of the addition of to the ordinary invocational phrase, the invocation itself should remind you to use the negative force to feed the invocation. And I pass here.
But
Go ahead, Michelle.
I can think of several reasons other than those I have already mentioned for negative force as a means of continuing the momentum of self-invocation, G said. What reasons? D inquired. Would you allow me to rob you and your friends of a chance to work? G asked. You should exercise your attention and mentation just a little. or your brain or your tailbrain will grow fat and lazy. Of course, if you are a secretary or a typist, this will provide some very nice additional padding for your auspicious behind. I'd been about to speak for several moments, and when G paused, he said, "Once I was about to explode from negative emotion, but I caught it just before the explosion. It was like waves of heat pounding outward from my body. It produced a definite sensation, the same kind you get from the desert sun." Pass.
Suppose you had self-invoked just at that moment, G proposed. I wish I had, he replied. I think my state would have provided a vast amount of energy, but at the time I had no data. I did not know about self-invocation. I'm not sure if it would not carry me away again so completely that I would forget entirely about invocation, he admitted. I have at times kept myself, he confided. I felt what I would call a transformation of sorts, what seemed to be the sensation of something in me being absorbed or eaten by someone or something. Did you sense this as something washing through you? G queried. Did you sense heat, a twinge of pain in your chest, or a feeling of anxiety? Do you recall experiencing a sensation? What do they call it? A sensation of longing, yearning, the sensation of homesickness, the hot hunger, the desire, the urge. All this is useful for invocational force, or you may feed it to lunar parasite if it is expressed. Even if not expressed, it will go to some lunar parasite if it is not used as force to invoke presence. And I pass.
On the other hand, at a school, when you fall into a negative state, you are trained to invoke presence. And as your presence comes into the present, as it takes root, it will feed itself. It will it will eat the negative force. In this way, you are feeding your own presence, your possible evolutionary angel's self. Maybe the volume is low.
I can hear you pretty good.
I can hear you pretty good as well, yeah.
Okay, and I pass. Thank you.
Why not say, I invoke my angelic presence? Kay asked. When you invoke the presence of your angelic self, then you are speaking not from the presence, but from the machine, G said. I invoke the presence of my presence into the present. Now I am speaking from the source, from the presence, hauling myself down by my own bootstraps. Feeding the angelic self with the force of negative emotion, D began. Nurturing and feeding, G clarified. The lunar parasite is fed by manifested organic emotion, the angelic self by substance resulting from organic emotion used to invoke presence. You have a choice. At the end of the day, tote the score. I'm not sure what that means. tote the
Right.
score.
Oh, well, what do you think it means, everybody?
At the end of the day, the
Oh,
score is the score, I guess.
do you know what the word tote means?
No.
Mark,
Okay, yeah. It's an Americanism, total up. So you total up who's the score. Did you do this more or did you do that more?
Oh, I see. So you
Yeah.
you have a choice. At the end of the day, tote the score. Who has grown the fatter of the two? Ah, does lunar parasite get hungrier and hungrier the more the angelic self is fed? We asked, and I passed there.
No need to worry, G reassured us. You will not starve the lunar parasite for a very long time. Lunar parasite has a variety of trickeries. It is very crafty in ways that seems harmless. You will be convinced that what you are doing is completely harmless and even useful as it hovers, chuckling to itself in amusement. Vampirism is very real, not at all just an old wives' tale. Sometimes I enter into a situation innocently, Dee admitted, and then observe in myself a certain type of sensation which hints to me that it is lunar parasite who is near. Yet, at first, I think whatever I am doing is not feeding lunar parasite. But then there is a little gnawing sensation. Suddenly, I became aware of a subtle sensation as it I could see a tiny light in my brain flickers to indicate that what I am doing is of questionable character. Ah, yes, the tiny blinking red light in the corner of your brain that reads soccer. G smiled. Are a professional mechanic remarked, I am beginning to see the use of invocation as a tool. It seems as if to invoke is like using a wrench. And I pass.
you can use the force of organic emotions as a tool in invocation similar to another tool, the stop engine, or excuse me, the stop exercise. G said, these are both invocational tools. Surely you know how to use the stop in an invocation. As a group, you have two immediate problems, G said. First, consider the question, how do you invoke? Along with this is the related question, how do you invoke what? Another question is, how can you tell an organic emotion when you see one? Nearly all negative emotions are not identified properly as involuntary organic emotions. You have another label for those. You have another label for these organic emotions. Perhaps you think of them something else. What are the labels you attach to organic emotions? And I pass.
I think that's the last sentence of the chapter.
Actually, it's not.
Oh, it's not?
No, keep.
Yes.
Oh, then back to this paragraph. Whoever wants to jump in.
Being happy, being comfortable are suggested. So then comes a graphic. You have a choice. Then you see two hands, one in white, another in black, pointing opposite directions. And then you see a lunar parasite field, and then you see an angelic self.
Go down, yeah. Go down just a little bit. Oh, no, no. At the end of the day, tote, there you go. Thank you.
Yes.
Go
So
ahead.
lunar parasite fed but manifested organic emotions, and the angelic self fed by substance resulting from organic emotion used to invoke presence. And at the end of the day, tote the score. Who has wronged the father of the two? And I think that's it. Thank
Do we understand this a little bit? This is a very profitable, symbol here. But we get it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like the way the material from the last 2 pages have been covered in this image, and it's like a really good representation of the idea. So it seems like whatever we feed goes grows more stronger at the end of the day, and we have a choice.
And doesn't that make a certain simplistic sense? The only thing that's different here is that in these chapters, EJ is pointing out to discern between mechanical behavior and invoked behavior. That wasn't an issue before, right? Before we got into this study and this discernment, we didn't even think about it. We just led our lives in a sense, and we go, "Oh well, I guess if I'm working out or I'm praying more, I'm reading this, then I should be okay." But he's taken it to the level of what I call fundamental change. If you are actually invoking, you're actually changing the electronic fabric of who you are. This is real change, not behavioral change. Does this make sense? Nobody can hear that, Nikhil, on the recording. You're nodding your
Yes.
head.
Oh, I meant to say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very, very, very important point, because we usually tend to go on changing behavior, but it's not the case here. It's
Yeah.
using mood to change something more profound, whatever that means. No,
Yeah.
not behavior.
Like the unfortunate thing about this, it's as have often say to myself, this is too simple for the human mind. Okay. And because isn't this happening at every single moment? Or is this happening every single moment?
I guess it's happening at every single moment. It's just that I don't think I notice it, or I am paying enough attention to notice it all the time. I do notice it sometimes.
So what about like when I I poured my coffee from the coffee maker into my cup and I spilled some on the counter?
Oh my God.
Sorry, Bernie.
Bernie's traumatized by the idea of coffee being wasted.
Well, so when I noticed, it was like the little coffee that dripped or that fell on the counter. It reminded me to observe myself. And I realized that I was anxious and rushing. You know what I mean? I was rushing to finish what I was doing so I could do this, and get to the class on time. That's how horrible this idea is. It's both an incredible opportunity and it's a curse. Unless this is what you want to do, then it's a blessing. So, not a bad paragraph.
Yeah. I like the point where it says that you are not going to suck the lunar parasite dry, because you may feel that, oh, I got it, I got the thing. Now I'm just going to keep on doing the same thing and get so strong. But it's more like living with the lunar parasite kind of situation where you make amends with it, like you have some, I have some kind of situation.
When do you stop self-observation? At this level, it's just, okay, it's work. It's a good thing.
Michelle in the chat says, can we read this last paragraph? Of course we can.
Thank you.
So do you mean this paragraph?
Yeah.
Can you go ahead? Would you like to read?
You ask me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would like to read from You Can Use the Force of Organic Emotion as a tool in invocation, similar to another tool, the stop exercise. She said, these are both invocational tools. Surely you know how to use the stop in an invocation. As a group, you have two immediate problems. She said, first, consider the question, how do you invoke? Along with this is the related question, how do you invoke what? Another question is, how can you tell an organic emotion when you see one? Nearly all negative emotions are not identified properly as involuntary organic emotion. You have another label for these organic emotions. Perhaps you think of them as something else. What are the labels you attach to organic emotions? Being happy, being comfortable are suggested.
Can anybody just maybe speak a few sentences about the stop exercise, if you guys know?
What is that, Michelle?
The stop exercise, from what I remember, is that we use the word stop and say stop in the middle of an action that we are doing. And at that moment, we stop the action and we stay in a posture without moving or without talking if we were talking. And we just observe and sense the machine. And what do you feel when you stop, when you don't, when you not keep going with what you were doing or with what you were thinking? That's what I remember.
Oh, it's very interesting.
The stop exercise is often done in a group, and somebody calls the stop. And so let's say we're having one of we used to call it karma yoga days, where we clean up the property. People work in the kitchen, and then in the middle of that, you're really doing good, pulling the weeds. You got the wood that you're moving, and then you're all charged up physically, and then someone says, stop. And then you have a moment to observe exactly what your machine is doing at that moment. Are you asleep? Are you awake? Are you caught up in the exercise of, making the lunch you just did the perfect thing with the salad, or are you, did you finally just finish weeding that one part of the garden and you just stand up and your ego is just flashing, or you're just in simple understanding of that?
Yeah, it can be done. Someone call the stop, and that's pretty powerful. Like one time I was in a kind of an upset or a dialogue with someone, and another person says stop, and it was so useful, yeah, because I responded to what she said, stop, and I just suddenly was able to don't keep going with my machine manifestation. And so it's such a useful exercise, and so little I remember of it, because if we can remember it oneself during a time when we are very negative or expressing something we don't wish to express, and be able to say stop to oneself and stop everything, I think it is a very useful tool.
Yeah, I think actually that seems like a very powerful exercise. If you're in the middle of a negative manifestation and you suddenly are forced to stop, that is like developing a muscle in you that will tell you, "Hey, I'm going down this road. Stop." I think that's. Uh, do you know if information about this exercise? I'm like interested to read more about this exercise. So if you have mentioned it in any other books or anything, that would be good to know.
Yeah, I'll find out. I know it's somewhere. I know
Is
it's
it?
I
somewhere,
don't really remember it anywhere.
but I'll find out if it is somewhere.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So one more thing, David, I'm not sure, but is it worthwhile to mention about that incident that Gurdjieff did with 3 guys for the stop exercise, where they were in the middle of the canal and then like Gurdjieff said, stop. I'm not sure if it's related.
It arises out of the Gurdjieffian studies and the fourth way studies. I think it's somewhere in the practical work on self, or maybe it's HPM, where somebody stands up and they're like, and they're acting as if they're directing a play in the middle of a restaurant, and then they say, stop. Okay, let's do it again now. Everybody, da 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 da. And which of course challenges everybody at the willing table, but also everybody in the restaurant, right? Yeah. Pretty much anything you're doing, you know, even things that require continual physical movement, like driving, even if you set a stop at that moment and you're wise enough not to stop driving the car properly, but you stop your own emotional nature or mental nature at that moment. Very useful.
All right, let's continue reading. So it's good that we read this last paragraph again, so we can just continue over here. Okay, going back to the last paragraph, the last questions was, what are the labels that you attach to organic emotions? And so I guess the first one was being happy, being comfortable. And then the thought continues over here, if anyone wants to continue reading that.
Social, D offered. Having a good time, P said. Taking a break, M said. Indulgence, T said. Being satisfied with myself and with other people, D offered. The group thought of numerous ways to complete this statement, such as I am just passing time, giving you some feedback for your own good in a work way, listening to gossip because they wanted to talk to someone. Evidently, everything is organic emotion, M concluded. Complete the phrase. It is not opinion. It is just my karma. It is just my posture. I am just laughing at a joke. It is funny. I am just having fun. I suppose this is also the case with the display of piety and sanctity, D said. What is not negative or organic emotion? K asked. X, what are you eating? G asked. Nothing, X replied. What was on your finger? G asked. I was just licking my finger because I had dipped it accidentally in some of Y's, her infant daughter's, food, X explained. What's wrong with that? Nothing, G chuckled, answering his own question. How would you recognize an organic emotion ordinarily identified as something else? G asked. By trying to break the state, D asked. States considered exalted are usually some form of organic emotion, G said. Some states you consider ordinary, even necessary, you cannot imagine functioning without them, yet they are also organic emotions. For instance, what do you do when you greet someone for the first time? Shake hands, smile. Imagine encountering the same person while walking in a hallway at work 6 times in same day. The first encounter would be a very cheerful greeting, perhaps pausing for a short time to chat, depending on your mood at the moment. The second encounter would be a friendly greeting. The third would be a quick superficial acknowledgement. The fourth, a flat exchange of glances. The fifth time, you would both make serious and even elaborate efforts to avoid crossing paths. And I pass.
However, it is stupid to eliminate organic emotion and negative manifestations from your repertoire because they serve to help you to invoke presence. Should it ever happen that you no longer have, let me repeat that again. Should it ever happen that you no longer can have organic community like this with darlings like yourselves who would never be caught dead in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, to provide the necessity negative force for your invocations. But there are two additional questions to consider tonight. First, how to invoke. Secondly, how to provide the invocation with a continuing momentum. G left the chamber to retire for the evening. And that is the end of chapter 9.
I have a question here for like stopping or like feeding negative emotions for your invoking your own presence. Sometimes it happens that say there is a series of event is going on, like somebody is trying to annoy you or irritate you or something or the other, and you are aware that you are just about to burst, but you pause, you invoke your presence. It happens, you pause, but then eventually like a moment comes and you burst, knowingly that you have to pause, but it's not in your hands. How to avoid that? Say you for first time you pause, second time, third time, but finally the vampire win over you. How to like pause that one?
Well, so the question is, if you pause 5 times, does that mean that's enough, right? You get a gold star.
But sixth time you lost everything that you had paused until now.
Yeah, but still, your ego will say, "I tried," but but excuse the expression, but she was a real bitch. Okay, hey, it. So if you really break into invocation of presence at that moment, you wind up. It just becomes an objective observation of the person's behavior. You're not dominated by your reaction to it. You're just noticing it. You go, fascinating.
And I also wanted to add that if you think of a stop versus a curbing of emotion, there will be a, because what you when you're trying to say stop, you're trying to be in a certain state of not being the mechanicality of
Yeah.
that. But when you're trying to curb it, you're trying to stop yourself from bursting. So I think like there is a difference when we're trying to curb ourselves, to suppress it basically. So I noticed that when I try to curb my emotions, like I'm trying to tell my child, like 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, and trying not to, scream out at the kid. And then I realized that what I'm trying to do is just trying to stop myself from screaming, but that is not stopping myself in,
Yeah.
So what I realized is that I'm stopping myself from that action, and that is not the stop that they're talking about.
No. So this is a critically important discernment that Bhavani is telling us. The difference between curbing the emotion and invoking your presence or the stop exercise. Curbing your emotion can just be another negative emotion, right? If I tell him what I really think, that no one will like me, that's a negative emotion. Or people, I know I'm going to be more saint-like if I don't yell at that person. So I am going to be more saint-like. That's not invoking your presence. It's subduing a negative emotion with another negative emotion. Or guilt is a really favorite of many of us, right? We suppress it by being guilty because we want to be angry.
And I realized that if we are in a state of stop, like when that happens, what happens is that suddenly I am extremely positive of every emotion my child is sharing with me in that. So then it becomes a kind of it's a transformation of yourself versus that subduing or curbing of that emotion, which I'm trying to not let it out. So I think that's the difference which I noticed, that suddenly you become positive about everything, even if the kid is not listening to you, you just see it as a state of that child. So not
That's my point. That
Yeah.
you can just see that other individual's mechanicality at work. And quite frankly, if you are in wonder about it, it gives that other person a moment to maybe find a different way. It's not your goal. It's not your goal.
David, it comes to my mind that kind of mantra that EJ sometimes says. Use it
Oh,
or not be used, no, by it. Use it or not be used by it. No. Anyway,
yeah.
we all have a need to make a concession with social life, of course. we cannot be 24 hours in that mood of self-exploration and self-evocation, because we have a duty to perform in our work and our social life, our lover, our child, whatever, no? But anyway, that is common sense, of course. As you said, you cannot call a stop when you are driving, but you can call a stop in your mind and dissociate yourself. Let the mechanical part of your body continue driving safely and stop your wandering mind. Bzz, 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 no,
Yeah.
I
And
think so.
and then you can also be thankful that your machine is so skilled that it can drive. And you go, my gosh, that is really, thank you so much. And it's driving, the feet are doing something, you're watching everything, and you watch that in wonder. You bring
I
wonderment to that moment, and
I
then you
am
see so much.
I am amazed. I was last night we had a kind of, not a workshop. We had a group meeting with Patricia. No, we reading the the I have the book here, so I don't miss the title. The hidden work, and I was sharing with the group. Nick Nishant was there, so he will get the point. The amazing, in a way that I see every day when I do with the group the readings of the American Book of the Dead, that somehow the machine can make the readings, and I am in another. I am lost somewhere with my why, but the machine is marvelous in a way because it can do the reading, but I don't pay. In a way, I'm not there paying attention. But anyway, the machine is doing correctly the ritual. It's incredible, no?
Nice. Nice.
but but I think that something is not very right in that because
Yeah, you're like anybody you're missing out
yes, I'm not allowed.
of what's happening. I've got to tell a real quick story. I'm sorry, I've told it a few times before, but we were doing this practical work on self class way back when we were using that early thing we had.
Alas,
Palace, that's right. Way years and years and years ago. I think it was the first year that I actually did that. And the process was you read the chapter, understand what it says, and then tell how you're going to practice it during the week. Okay. So it was a 48-week course.
Wow.
And we got to one where the guy was a counselor for a high school for troubled boys, bad boys, boys that had gotten in trouble. And so he was determined to do this exercise. I can't remember which one it was with this particular boy. And the boy came in and just would lie. I mean, just every single time he would lie, lie, and lie. And our friend noticed that he would react and he goes, "This butthead, he's just reacting. I mean, he's a liar. What a chump, la 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 la." And that was what's happening in my friend, the counselor's head. And then gradually he just he started unidentifying with that. You understand? He stopped identifying with his judgment. And gradually he let that go totally. And like the third or fourth meeting with the young boy, the guy started telling the truth. There was an emanation that allowed that other boy to change. He had to do the work. Our friend, our counselor, he worked very hard on himself. He didn't, and you could begin to see that you get identified with your observations, your judgments, or whatever it is. It's your identification that sweeps you under the rug, not the person's behavior. Yeah, I share all these stories about my neighbor, Denise. This is a lovely woman. This is incredible. She has a heart as big as all outdoors. And she has some weird behavior. So I love her so much that I just kind of I just watch that occur, which I am sure she's doing with me. Not always. She reacts to me, but you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
excellent.
So we're just about out of time, but I want to share a quick exercise, or is that okay, Nikhil?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm going to call this exercise called split attention. Okay. So we have 5 senses, right? Does anybody remember the senses that we have? Yeah, I didn't think so. Even the doctor doesn't remember. Okay. One of them happens to be hearing. Okay. And sight, smell, touch. Okay.
Taste.
Taste is the other one. So let's say pick one of those senses and watch it as it's occurring. Maybe it's the sense of vision. You're looking at something, but notice your presence while it's happening. You see what I mean? So you just you kind of marvel at the fact that you can see something or hearing. I've been doing it with hearing recently, listening to myself speak. Like right now, I notice that I'm speaking, I can hear it, and I'm paying attention to myself. It's particularly interesting to do when you're in conversation with somebody. You think you're going to lose your way because you're invoking presence. But then you get to see certain behavioral traits you have. Anyway, just some thoughts.
Wonderful. Refining sensations or refining perception.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You know, like when you have later on today, when you have pancakes with maple syrup and butter,
Ooh,
Uh-oh.
and and your mouth goes perfect. Anyway,
I was not planning on eating pancake and maple syrup, but I think I will now.
for some reason.
Sounds
So,
lunch
great to me
here.
right now.
well, thank you for getting us going here, Nikhil.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming in during this last week of the year. And
Yeah.
let's meet next year. Let's meet in 2025.
Yay.
Will we be meeting on Monday though? Next Monday?
Yeah, what's next Monday? Is it still this year? Oh, it is. Oh, it is. Yeah, of course. I thought it will be meeting next year directly, but I guess we are meeting again this year. One last time. Let's do it one last time.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
All right. See you guys next
Bye-bye.
Friday. Bye bye. Thank you guys for joining
Thank
in.
you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Merry
You bet,
Christmas in
Swati.
advance.
Davani.
Merry Christmas to everyone.